So, guys, imagine you're dating this person for a really long time. At least a year until you find out something very shocking. They're using you. See, they want to get close to your family, they want to get close to your bank account, and the worst part is, once you figure this out and you cut that person off, the worst thing is to see them resurface again. Well, that's exactly what happened in today's story, because OP is dealing with a boyfriend that she tried to cut off, but he just won't go away. Guys, that boyfriend is now dating OP's sister, and things are about to get wild. It feels weird to be the one writing here asking for advice and opinions. Normally, I'm the one reading through people's stories and giving them my advice, but I guess it's my turn. This is a throwaway account because I don't want anyone connecting the dots to my real identity, but I could really use the advice. So, here it goes. I've always had a close relationship with my older sister, Charlie. We've been inseparable since we were little kids, and I think it's because of our close age gap. We hardly fought while growing up, and even though we went to different colleges, we always stayed close despite the distance. We both knew that we were going to work at one of our family businesses, because that's what our grandfather always wanted. Charlie went to the marketing route, and I decided to go the legal route. So we were working at the same company, but in different departments. This actually made a super fun work environment, and it was exciting. I mean, we've never had any form of sibling rivalry because we both knew that we were doing well in our department. However, I started to notice a change in Charlie. See, we had just celebrated her 30th birthday in Las Vegas with her friends and our cousin Amanda, who also works with us. Charlie would complain about how she felt that her life was not fruitful and that she was a disappointment. She was saying this because she was 30 years old with no husband or children. She'd always dreamt of getting married and having a family, but unfortunately she was just unlucky with relationships. She would always fall in love too fast and with the wrong guy, so she decided to give relationships a break and focus on her career, which worked in her favor because she was the one of the top marketing agents in the city. But that just wasn't enough for her. She really wanted to get married and have a baby, and whenever I would tell her that she should not rush such a thing, she would tell me to shut up and stop telling her such as, well, so I stopped. I couldn't understand what exactly the big deal was. There are a lot of women who aren't married and don't have kids at 30. I mean, this isn't 1950 where your value and worth come from only being a wife and a mom. Times have changed, and I didn't understand why Charlie was so obsessed with such. But maybe it's because I got my heart broken just before I went to law school and decided to put a stop to men. However, that all changed once I started having a little on and off fling with my coworker Mike. You know, it was nothing serious, and we had both agreed that we were just having fun until I noticed how we could make, well, how could he make me pay for all the dates despite him planning them? See, he would choose the most expensive restaurant, yet he never wanted to foot the bill. He would always come up with this excuse, or that excuse, or something. And it was always one thing or the other. Well, I also noticed how he would always bring up my family's wealth and business, and he would constantly nag me to personally introduce him to my father, which I found to be pretty absurd because we were not in a serious relationship. He also would try to convince me to take him as my date to work events, but I would just straight up reject such a thing because we were not in a relationship. You guys know the last straw was when he asked me to pay for his rent. I mean, this man had been borrowing money from the moment we started this fling, yet he would never pay me? No, he never paid me back like he would ever promise. I could not really understand this weird tendencies because when you look at his social media pages, he was always posting himself next to expensive cars at these fancy, top-class restaurants. Just by looking at his page, you would think that he was well off. So I broke things off, and he tried to manipulate me not to leave him, but I did. I was just grateful that we didn't work in the same department, so we hardly bumped into each other. You know, it did make things a lot easier for me. I wanted nothing to do with that money-draining leech. Anyways, a few days ago, I decided to go pay Charlie a visit to her office. It's been a while since I saw her, or even spent time with her. which wasn't normal because we always spent time together. I got to her office and she wasn't there, but I decided I would just wait for her to come back. I saw that her laptop was open, and I took a peep at her screen. There was nothing too interesting on it, and then Charlie walked in and looked horrified to see me and asked what the hell I was doing on her laptop. Before I could even explain, she slammed her laptop closed. Her behavior was bizarre, but I decided not to pay too much attention to it. She then asked if I wanted to get some coffee with her, which I agreed to. We took a walk to the coffee shop down the road. See, we were catching up and it felt like old times. She was telling me about this big project she was working on with a well-known big-time client. I was so proud of her. She had achieved so much in the last 5 years, and I knew our grandfather would be proud of her. He'd always believed in our dreams and goals, and Charlie then said that she wondered who would take over after our father retires. I told her that hopefully one of us would take over despite us being young. Charlie shook her head and said that she doubted she would be chosen. I asked her why, and she said it's because she would not have the time. So I asked her what she meant by her statement, and she completely ignored my question 100% by changing the subject. She asked if I was seeing anyone, and I simply shook my head. She then told me that I need to hurry up and find someone because the clock is a-ticking. I told her that I was in no rush and that I was just happy being myself. She rolled her eyes and asked why I was lying to myself. I was taken back by her response and told her that I didn't appreciate her remark. She then starts talking about how a woman's fertility decreases after 30. I was beyond confused about Charlie's behavior during our coffee break. All she talked about was marriages and babies. It felt like she was trying to pressure me into something. But what I found even more weird was that when we got back to the office, she started feeling very nauseous and blamed it on the coffee. I mean, we've been going to this coffee shop for years and she never once experienced this. I told our mother, Carly, about Charlie's weird behavior and she told me to stop overthinking and analyzing things. She said that Charlie was probably acting out because she had just turned a milestone age, and that she was probably stressed by the fact that she thought that she would have been married with kids by now. I decided to listen to my mother and ignore Charlie's weird behavior. A few days later, Charlie came to my office with my favorite donuts and iced coffee. She said that she wanted to apologize for the other day. She explained that she was going through a very weird phase in her life and that she would tell me all about it very soon. She just needed some time to figure out a few things. I told her I understood and was happy that she had to come to me. She then tells me that she was going to be hosting a very special important dinner next weekend and that she was going to invite the whole family. I asked her what the dinner was for and she gave me a little smile. She told me that it was a secret but a good one. I don't know why, but my stomach immediately turned and said, my gut feeling was telling me that there was something suspicious about this secret dinner. Charlie and I hardly kept secrets from each other, and I'm wrong for feeling this way. Maybe? I know that she doesn't have to tell me everything, but that's why we've done that forever. And she's always been acting so weird lately, and I can't help but worry. So I'm gonna ask you guys, do you think that I'm overreacting? Do you think that I'm overthinking? Am I feeling too entitled? What do you guys think? If you guys are enjoying today's story, go ahead and subscribe to the channel because we have 5 action-packed updates to hop into today. Alright, let's jump into the first update. Update number 1, it's been a few days. Hey, I know that my gut feeling was not messing with me. It's never been wrong, and I honestly should have asked my sister more questions about the secret dinner because then I would have been prepared for this, so here's what happened. It was finally the day of Charlie's dinner. I was riding with Amanda. When we arrived, I noticed that Mike's car was there. Obviously, I was confused because Charlie had said that this was a family dinner. Not to give anything away, I acted like I didn't know whose car was parked in the driveway when Amanda asked. As expected, we found Mike seated with my parents and another old couple, which I found out were his parents. Charlie was in the kitchen getting ready to set up the table as I was about to rush over to her and ask about Mike. He stood up and greeted us. We greeted back and took our seats, and I felt so uneasy because I had not seen Mike since we broke up. This was beyond awkward and uncomfortable for me, and Mike kept on talking about his contributions to the company to my parents. I noticed that his parents were very quiet and just kept to themselves even. Charlie eventually served us dinner and sat down next to Mike. I found their body language odd. Mike kept going on and on about his projects and how he had brought so many big clients to the company. I could not handle the suspense anymore and asked Charlie, "What is Mike doing here?" Mike smirked at me, but Charlie responded, and her response nearly made me fall out of my seat. Charlie had just announced to us that Mike was her boyfriend. I couldn't believe my ears. Boyfriend. She told us that they've been dating for the past 6 months, which I found very suspicious because the whole thing with me and Mike happened 6 months ago. So when did she exactly get together with Charlie, and when did they have time to go on dates to get to know one another? My father, he then asked if they had informed HR about their relationship since they were co-workers because they worked for the same department. I then asked my father if it was even necessary because their relationship was still new, and obviously it's not very serious. Before my father could even respond, Mike looked at me and told me that their relationship is very serious. I laughed and told him that 6 months didn't exactly spell out serious. I could tell that my statement had hurt Charlie's feelings, but in that moment, I didn't care. I was just trying to understand this whole so-called relationship. Mike laughed and told me that this relationship is very, very serious. He took Charlie's hand and my body froze when I noticed what was on her finger. There was a ring. A ring. Mike then announced that he and Charlie were engaged. Before anybody could even respond, I put my fork down and yelled that there was no way in hell that he was going to marry my sister. Everyone looked at me with confusion and shocked facial expressions, and Mike's mother even asked if I've been drinking and if I was okay. Well, nobody could answer her because I was blowing up. I yelled that hell would break loose. No. Hell would freeze over before I allow him to marry my sister. Charlie even asked me to keep quiet and stop disrespecting her fiancé. I couldn't believe that she would defend this womanizer. So I stood up and excused myself. Amanda followed me and asked why I was reacting so badly to the news. I didn't want to embarrass myself or Charlie, so I ignored her question and decided to leave with an Uber, since I got a ride with her. I didn't even say goodbye to anybody. Irish goodbye. I just walked out of Charlie's house. Was I wrong for reacting the way I did? I feel like I should have handled things better, or heck, even differently. Should I feel embarrassed? I mean, how would you guys have reacted upon finding out such news? Update number 2. It's been a week since the disastrous dinner and the engagement announcement. I never thought that my relationship with my sister could turn sour so quick. I mean, I have no idea what I'm doing wrong because all I'm trying to do is protect her from the biggest mistake of her life. I was busy working on some legal documents when my mother walked into my office. She told me that we need to talk. I stopped working. She told me that my behavior from the other night was awful and that she and my father were very disappointed in me. I honestly just felt sick to my stomach. I knew that my reaction to the engagement was bad. My mother then tells me that I had to apologize to both Charlie and Mike. I knew that I was not going to apologize or even talk to Mike, but I knew that I had to apologize and talk to Charlie. So, after work, I passed her place and was surprised by what I found. Boxes, suitcases, everywhere. Charlie greeted me and apologized for the mess. I asked her what's going on. Her answer left me absolute flabbergasted. She told me that she and Mike were going to be moving in together. She then explained that Mike suggested that they get a big place since they were going to be husband and wife. I asked if Mike had already paid for the deposit for the new apartment. She first hesitated, and then explained that she had paid the deposit and would be paying the rent while Mike saved up for their wedding and dream house. Oh boy. My stomach immediately turned. My gut instinct told me that something was not right about this whole situation. Before I could even say anything, Charlie told me that she didn't want to hear anything I had to say about her relationship with Mike. Well, I blurted out that Mike was using you. I told her that she should not marry him and that she was making the biggest mistake of her days, and she rolled her eyes at me and said that she could not believe how jealous I was. She then said that Mike had warned her about my jealousy and that I would try to ruin their happiness with all my negativity. I couldn't believe my ears. Mike was clearly manipulating her, and I told her that I would never be jealous of a leech, and that's when things went south incredibly quickly. See? Charlie, she lost it. She starts yelling about how miserable and jealous I was, and she mentioned my toxic past relationship and said that the reason it had failed was because of how selfish I was. Guys, my heart had shattered into a million little pieces when she said that because she knew that I was being verbally and emotionally abused in the relationship. Out of anger, I told her that she was a desperate lunatic who would marry anyone just because she was pathetic and desperate. I knew those words would hurt her deeply once she yelled for me to get out of her house and that I was no longer invited into her engagement party or wedding. At first, I refused to leave because I wanted to try to fix things. But then she threatened to even call my security, if you can believe that. And the police, if I didn't leave. So I just left. Once I got home, I had text messages from my parents out of the wazoo. They were basically telling me that Charlie had told them everything, and that I was the one in the wrong, which did not surprise me because Charlie could obviously do no wrong in their eyes. I'm just starting to regret not telling my sister the real truth of why she shouldn't marry Mike. Man, should I have told her instead of calling him a leech? Should I just accept the fact that my sister is going to marry a money-hungry leech? I don't know. Update number 3. A few weeks have passed since my awful argument with Charlie, and life has been horrible. My family was not talking to me except for Amanda and her mom. Mike's mother had created a whole entire hate train about me on social media. I didn't know what her dealio was, but my family and I were not on good terms. I was working from home when Amanda and our good colleague Phil came to check up on me. Amanda was updating me about Charlie's engagement planning, and I just couldn't bottle up Mike's and I's secret fling anymore, so I blurted it out. They did not look surprised at all. Amanda said that Mike had also tried hitting on her a few months ago, but backed off once he found out that she was into girls. And then Phil then exposed how Mike had dated his sister also. Guys, he even explained how Mike had tried to milk his sister dry because he would manipulate her into paying for everything? Once Phil said that, a light bulb lit up in my head, and I knew that I had to take Mike down and expose his little sliminess. I then showed them the text between Mike and me. I also showed them my bank statements, and Amanda then pointed out that it was a very suspicious thing that Mike had proposed to Charlie so quickly and just after the acting CEO post had been announced. And that was when it all clicked. The constant nagging of wanting to meet my father, trying to get me to take him as my date to work events. Mike had been trying to get me to convince my father to hire him for the acting CEO post. And once I had ended things, he probably devised a plan to get to Charlie. This was very bad, and I knew very well that Charlie would not believe me unless I could prove my claim. I told Phil and Amanda my plan, and they were on board to help me. However, Amanda asked if I was sure about exposing my relationship with Mike. I told her that if I meant, stopping my sister from making the biggest mistake of her life, then I would take the risk. I asked Phil if he could ask his sister to share any form of evidence that she had on Mike's gold-digging ways. He said he would try, but I should not be too hopeful, because they had dated almost a year ago. I told him that's okay. I then asked him if he could check the HR records and see if Mike had applied for the acting CEO post since he worked under the department. I was going to take Mike down. I was not going to allow him to use Charlie to climb the ranks. I may know why he was so desperate. But there's one thing I don't know. Why does he want to be the CEO so bad? But one thing I am certain about is he's a gold-digging leech. Do you guys think that this is worth taking the risk for? Would I just be adding more turmoil to my sister and my relationship? I know I'm doing this with good intentions, but will she see it like that? I guess we'll find out. Update number 4. It's been 2 weeks since my meetup with Amanda and Phil. Hey guys, so I've been dealing with a roller coaster and I'm just asking myself if I was doing the right thing. But I knew that there was no turning back now. It was the evening of Charlie and Mike's engagement party. I was obviously not invited, but Amanda and Phil were. They managed to sneak me into the venue without security noticing, and I was wearing a black wig and sunglasses so that no one would immediately recognize me. However, my mother spotted me and rushed over. She started asking me to leave, and I told her I couldn't. Our conversation started getting a bit heated, and people were now watching. Amanda then loudly asked my mother to hear me out, and that caught everyone's attention. Charlie rushed over to us and asked my mother why she had not called for security. Before she could even call security, I took out the documents and exposed my relationship with Mike. I admitted to having a fling with Mike, and that he manipulated me into paying for everything. My mother and Charlie started scanning through the documents, and Mike and his mother then rushed over to us, and Mike was yelling that they should not believe a word I say. He told them I was obsessed with him, and that I was only doing this because he rejected me. I then took out Phil's sister's bank statements and their printed out text messages, and I asked Mike if she was obsessed with him too. My mother was gobsmacked. She looked over at Mike and told him that he was a weakling for using women to fund his money. Mike's mother started yelling at me. She said that the documents were obviously fabricated, and this led me to expose that Mike was using Charlie to get the acting CEO role. My father, at that point, he joined into the convo once he heard that, and I showed him Mike's application, which proved that he had applied for the position a few days before the engagement announcement. Charlie then revealed that he had proposed to her that night. I could see the hurt on her face. Out of desperation, Mike then confessed that his mother had put him up to this. In return, Mike's mother exposed him by showing us their text. Yeah, it's getting bad. It showed that Mike was indeed using Charlie to get into the family business and had been elected acting CEO. In the text messages that read, he called Charlie desperate, naive, gullible, you name it, it was there. Mike then confessed that he had been using both Charlie and me to get his precious hands on the acting CEO role, because that was all he needed to ensure that he would live a life of luxury. He said that he deserved to be wealthy and paid good yearly, and marrying Charlie would have given him that. Charlie looked him right in the eyes and slapped him. Charlie slapped Mike as I pulled her back. I noticed there was blood dripping. I screamed, and that's when Charlie confessed to being pregnant. My mother immediately called the ambulance, and while we were trying to help Charlie, Mike and his parents tried running off. Luckily, security was around, and they told me that they were not going anywhere. My father stayed behind to deal with Mike, and we rushed Charlie to the hospital. I felt so guilty and bad, I would never forgive myself if Charlie lost this baby, because of all the drama I caused. Was I being selfish? Should I have maybe exposed Mike on a different day, instead of at their engagement party? I just knew that I wanted to publicly humiliate and expose him, but not at that expense of my sister. I don't know. Final update. Hey guys, it's me. I'm back. Well, let me get into it. A few months have passed since the ordeal, and it's been one hell of a ride. I'm just glad that the bad days are gone, but I don't think I'll ever stop feeling a sense of guilt for everything that's happened. Firstly, Charlie and the baby are perfectly fine. She did have to stay at the hospital for a couple of days just to make sure that she and the baby were okay. The reason she had started bleeding was because of the amount of stress, hurt, and devastation she was feeling in the moment. The doctor told us that it was a good thing that we immediately took her to the hospital instead of waiting for the ambulance. Mike and Charlie are no longer together. However, they will be co-parenting despite them being on bad terms. But Charlie didn't want to deprive her baby of having a father despite him being a nasty gold-digging user. I didn't agree with her decision, but hey, I decided to respect it. He was the father of my niece, so he's always going to be in our lives. My father, he did fire Mike, which made me extremely happy. We found that Mike had been using women for money for years. It was how he funded his life. Unfortunately, we also found out that his marketing qualifications were fraudulent. He'd never even graduated college. My father was trying to figure out how in the hell HR missed this. He was clearly a fraud. Charlie and I were working on our relationship. It definitely has not been easy because a lot of hurtful things were said. And some things were easy, to remember, and some things were not easy to forget. But we're in a better place now. We're now living together because I just wanted to help out with their baby as much as possible. My parents had apologized for their wrongdoing, and as much as I did forgive them, their actions kinda left a bad taste in my mouth. They had shown me that Charlie was low-key their favorite, and I don't think I'll ever get over that. I mean, yes, my revenge plan had worked in my favor, and I didn't regret retaliating against Mike and the relationship he had with my sister. But I just feel like it also did a bit of damage on my side. It showed me that revenge also has its cons and that it isn't always as sweet as they claim. I guess that's it for my story, Anna. I don't know. Anyways, thank you guys for sticking around.